All right, what is up, friends? Super excited to be in front of all you retro fans once again. I'm Dark Alexander, and I'm going to be helping out with commentary for this awesome race of Batman Returns between LRock617 and Westpoint Steve. These two gentlemen have PBs 13 seconds apart from each other, so this is going to be a very tight race all the way through, I'm sure, and we're going to see some awesome stuff. So without too much further ado, we will count these gentlemen down and we will get the race underway. And they're off. So casually, this is a very, very challenging beat 'em up based on the Batman Returns movie, but they did an awesome job throwing a really cool move set in for Batman to use. Breaking out the zip line to get a little bit of extra speed here at the beginning. You're going to be seeing a lot of this punch combo here. So the both of them are executing what is essentially an infinite combo on these guys. Now, there's a few different variations of it, but you're going to be seeing a lot of this punch-punch-kick combination that's going to dish out a ton of damage to these guys really, really quickly. The clowns do have varying amounts of health based on what type of enemy it is. Sometimes they just have more for whatever reason, because the game developers like to be fun there. So we're basically taking advantage of the fact that we're not executing the last move of this combination that Batman has. Normally he would do a roundhouse kick that would knock the enemy down, but that slows us down because we can't do any damage to them until they get back up. So you'll see LRock here cruising into the rocket section here by the storefronts. Both of the players make a very nice use of the Batarang. The two sub-items we have to work with are the Batarang and the Zipline. The Batarang will actually stun the enemies and do a small amount of damage, so it gives them a lot more time to get themselves set up. Much like any beat-em-up, a lot of this game involves grouping up the enemies so you can efficiently take them down with one combo. See, LRock just dropped a test tube there. That's a quick tool to clear everything off of the screen. So far, these guys are both making very, very quick work of this. Smashing the windows there for some swag. LRock just knocked that mailbox over. That actually forces the enemies to spawn just a little bit quicker. It does count as an enemy sprite, and making nice use of the extra joy attack there to take out both of those bikers at once. So just a few seconds apart, these two. This second section here, right before the boss, you can actually just hold right and walk past everything. Much, much easier than actually having to try to fight all of these guys. You can end up burning a whole lot of time, or just let them walk off on their own. So coming into the stun gun clown, we've actually got a little quick maneuver here. He's going to use a zip line and rip part of the concrete out and knock him right in the back of the head. There's a big chunk of damage right off the bat. And finishing him off with a test tube there really quickly. Steve coming up on the end of it as well. And that is one stage down. So the challenge of the game really ramps up pretty quickly here. This is a very long stage that's broken up into 3 sections, but there's very, very tricky spots in here. I'm going to be seeing a lot more of this 3-punch combo. With the enemies spawning on both sides of the screen, making nice use of that zip line there to cover a little bit more ground. See LRock making use of the grab maneuver there. You can actually pick up the enemies and move them into place, and it keeps them from attacking you for a short amount of time. You can also, while you have them held, you can either execute a headbutt maneuver, or you can throw them to the ground as well, which is very, very helpful for giving you some iframes and buying you a little bit of time while doing damage, which is always helpful. Making use of the test tubes again to take out some of these fat clowns. Always nice to be able to clear out a whole screen full of enemies, and those fat clowns can be a real nuisance. They've got a ton of health. Their special attacks, they can cover a lot of ground really quickly, and they combo up with several of the enemies in the game very, very, very nicely. Both players really just flying through everything. LRock smashing that fence post there. The explosives in this game you want to be careful with. If you time the punch well, you can knock it backwards, and you can actually pick up the clowns and carry them right into the explosion, which you'll see right here. Nice use of the environment, and make a nice use of that slam to take out the motorcycle. So these fire clowns can be very, very deadly. The range on their attack makes them a lot harder to deal with, but if you can get up close and personal to them quickly, you can kind of avoid some of that and lock them into the combo. So, getting into the second part of Stage 2 here. These bouncing clowns are a real nuisance. And we're just going to try to get through this opening segment as quickly as possible. Let these clowns just kind of drag behind us. They're going to be killed by the environment. It looks like Westpoint Steve's taking just a little bit of a lead here, but still very, very tight race. Using the zip line to stay out of the fire. Does a lot of damage. Also costs you a little bit of time, because every little knockdown and knockback just eats away at that clock. We've got the third section of Stage 2. It's very, very tricky. A lot of the segments here just have a lot of high health enemies. You'll see LRock was able to use the Batarang there to do a little bit of damage to the sword guys there first. When they're doing their taunt maneuver, their little sword swallowing act, you can actually hit them with a Batarang and do a nice big chunk of damage to them. Normally, they would just block that with their swords, so nice use of that. Steve getting into probably the trickiest part of this whole stage, just the way the enemies spawn on both around, and if they get on either side of you, it becomes a real tricky spot. So Steve making nice use of the extra joy to buy himself some space there, making excellent use of the Batarangs. Every little bit, just trying to keep control of the screen here makes a huge difference. Saves a lot of the risk, because if they get on either side of you, it can get really ugly once you start getting knocked down. They get a little bit of advantage on you with their attack speed, so definitely don't want to find yourself in Combo City. Westpoint Steve, the first one here to the Scene 2 boss. This is going to be the strongman fight. You're going to see the use of the one-punch combo to hopefully infinite the boss to death. He can be a very tricky one. He doesn't have the additional enemies around him. We were able to kill them off first, so we were able to keep them away from this fight. But when he has his henchmen to help him out, they can get on either side of you and knock you right out of that infinite. So very important that they got those out of the way first. But looks like both guys landed the infinite combo. They're through Stage 2, and we are cruising right through this. So we've got a vertical auto scroller here. This is a pretty interesting segment. Most of these clowns we can just kind of avoid. We'll see how the runners choose to get through this. We've got LRock taking advantage of the duck strats. Westpoint Steve is just going crazy with the Batarangs, taking everything out before it can land. See, on LRock's side, a lot of these guys will just take one quick attack at Batman and then they will give up and jump off. Which I wouldn't want to fight Batman either, so no one could blame them. And they'll just kind of ride out the rest of this. Steve is up to the top of the roof. We have to cover a little horizontal distance at this point to get ourselves over to the boss fight. So making use of the zip line, they're actually going to be going underneath where the game intends you to go, skipping by a whole big group of enemies. Oh, and Steve couldn't quite make the jump over that rocket. Very, very tricky jump there to avoid the rocket launcher clown. LRock getting caught by the same thing. So you'll see Steve is ducking on just on the right side of the screen. He's actually in a sweet spot there, right above that fourth rivet, where the fire's not going to hit him, the explosions aren't going to drop on him, and he can just kind of take care of the enemies that are spawning around him from safety. They are going to zip line across the rest of this stage. And we are getting into one of the hardest fights of this game, the Catwoman fight. Very, very important that they land this infinite combo, because she is very fast and does a lot of damage. This fight can get out of hand really quickly if she breaks free. This is a very, very tricky fight as well, because I think this is 54 hits, if I'm not mistaken, they have to land to finish off Catwoman. Steve has a very, very nice fight there. LRock closing this one out. Awesome. Very, very nice fights from both of them. So you're going to be seeing something a little bit different here at the beginning of the stage. This is more of a timed segment. Though the game isn't very obvious about it, the more enemies you kill here, the more that are going to spawn. But if you do the little dance that you're seeing Steve and LRock doing right now, you can just kind of maintain those two clowns there and skip by any additional enemies. So it makes it quite a bit safer, and you get a bit of a breather. This next section here is a little bit more RNG heavy. It's not always going to be the same kind of clowns that are dropping from the ceiling there. The main point is to try to keep out of the light where they're all falling down. So a lot of fat clowns falling on Steve's side of things. This is another stage where things are a little tight, but the enemy groupings are super, super crucial. Coming into the second segment here for Steve, it starts adding more of the sword guys and the fire clowns. So the combination of those three enemies, the fat clowns, the fire clowns, and the sword swallowers, makes for a really deadly combination. So this last section here is quite tricky. They are not shy with the test tubes, taking out a lot of dangerous enemies at once before they can get control of things. And sliding right into the second Catwoman fight, very similar to the first one. Same MO, just drop her into that infinite punch combo and hope it sticks. The sync on these races is insane. It looks like Steve's got the lead by about 12 punches. Coming up on another very, very difficult boss fight. This one is super tricky. Takes away a lot of the beat-em-up elements of it and turns it into a side-scrolling shooter as sorts. So the Penguin is just flying around all over the place with his little helicopter. So all we have to work with right now is our batarangs. You're going to see both of them doing their best to avoid all of the umbrellas that are flying around the screen. He's going to be dropping explosive ones, and the ones that go side to side are very tricky to avoid with all of the other things that are happening. So you don't have a whole lot of room to work with, and you'll see that the Penguin does a ton of damage. His attacks aren't quite as deadly, but if he just charges into you, it's going to do about a third of your health. So you want to be very, very careful to try to preserve as much to their health as they can getting into this. It looks like LRock managed to cover up a little bit of ground and actually gain some back there. So slight lead change, but things are still very, very close. All right. So this is a stage that actually had a fairly recent discovery. Not as much recent for these guys. They've been playing it for quite a while, but until more recently, this was never really discovered that you could just hold down up and actually go into turbo mode in the Batmobile, which ended up saving something like 13 seconds off of this particular stage. So for the most part, they're just going to be, they can tap both of the attack buttons to fire the left and the right machine guns or whatever kind of weapon that Batman's using right now. But the main thing is they're trying to keep as few of these guys on the screen as possible. You will see some of the motorcycles do have more health, and they're going to start shooting rockets at you. So not the biggest deal here in easy mode. The rockets aren't that hard to avoid. They actually do, on harder difficulties, make them homing rockets, so it becomes a much more difficult stage. So for the most part, they're just trying to avoid getting too many of these guys on the screen and taking too much damage before the boss here. So sticking towards the middle of the road here, trying to avoid the oncoming motorcyclists. A couple more of these rocket bikers before the final boss of the stage comes up. And we're up against the campaign van here, a literal clown car of rockets and bad vibes. So just trying to stay in a line with the van can be very tricky because it bounces all over the place as they're shooting rockets and throwing dynamite back at us. So just trying to maintain that good rhythm on the fire and hopefully miss as few shots as possible. So very nice fight from LRock there. And once again, Westpoint Steve not far behind. Moving on to scene 6, the circus train, because every good beat 'em up needs a train stage. Is right in their face because we don't want to deal with any of that. We've got the knife throwers making another guest appearance, and you'll be seeing shortly here, we've got a few more stage hazards we need to worry about. We're going to be joined by some more biker clowns in the background who are going to start throwing dynamite at us, because of course they will. So very rude. But we'll see LRock and Westpoint Steve taking advantage of the top pixel of this train being a bit of a safe haven for us from those biker clowns. So while we do have clowns spawning on either side with explosives, much easier to deal with when we don't have to worry about the background also coming up to bite us. Rolling through the jugglers here really quick. We've got a few fire clowns to deal with. And then we're going to be doing a little bit of platforming while we do our next couple rounds of fights here. See LRock just kind of tanking the damage through that, using our block to the best of our ability, keeping ourselves from getting knocked down by that post. So a little bit of chip damage isn't that bad. We get to keep moving on. And that block is a very, very powerful tool, especially getting into these late stages. It's mandatory for the infinite combo that we're using, because we're actually canceling out the punch combo after that third hit. But it saves us from a lot of the explosions that are going to be happening in the next stage. If you ever get overwhelmed and they do manage to get a hit on you, it's going to keep you from getting knocked down and getting blocked into a pretty nasty combo. So LRock through the end of the train, coming up on the organ grinder fight. Very, very tricky fight. It's similar to the strongman, but if this one manages to break free of the infinite combo, it is much, much more punishing. He moves very fast, and he's got a nasty ranged attack to deal with. And then you have these thin clowns you also have to worry about that are just going to keep spawning. So LRock able to get through that without having to worry about his infinite going away. See how Westpoint Steve does. Notice he's able to keep all of the thin clowns in with the combo on the organ grinder as well. So great positioning on that. All right, scene 7 here. The last total stage of the game. Very, very rough stage. So many things we have to worry about. We've got a lot more of these rocket clowns, and just generally more explosions all around come with this stage. So we're going to be seeing these biker clowns. A couple of them are just going to drive past, but these ones we're going to try to take out with the batarang. So the nice part about Easy here is we can actually take them out with one batarang hit. You'll see a couple of times we'll be using the slam to our advantage to take them out as well. But LRock actually making a nice hit there. He was able to do some damage off screen by knocking out that biker clown in just the right spot. And LRock the first into the rocket penguin stage. All of these angry mechanical penguins causing all kinds of explosions. Makes this section very, very dangerous on all difficulties, but this one in particular, it makes it really tricky to try to keep a safe combo going without getting hit in the face with something exploding. So found a nice safe spot there. Westpoint Steve shortly behind him. And LRock making nice use of the extra joy there again. He did get knocked down, but he was able to save himself a little bit of time getting back up with that extra joy attack. And he bought himself some space against those fat clowns who are closing in. And this is a very tricky spot because those fire clowns and the fat clowns pair up very, very, very nicely. The range on that fire attack, they can hit you with that while the fat clown's winding up his jump attack, and it gets nasty in a hurry. They do lots of damage if they get crazy. So coming through the last penguin segment here. Cleaning up a few more enemies on either side. Just in the home stretch before a little mini boss rush towards the end of the game here. But making quick work of things. LRock's going to take care of that sword guy. And then we have quite a few very nasty enemies. So the strat here is just bomb the place to oblivion with test tubes. You just want to make sure you wait until 3 enemies have spawned. You'll take them all out at once. And that will be the end of that screen. Westpoint Steve right behind him. So we're coming into the duck vehicle fight. Shout outs to the penguins just taking a ride. The key here is just try to keep a good rhythm on your batarang so you can get as much damage as you can while they're in range. A little damage here is inevitable. You just have to try to take advantage of the spots so you can still keep up that good combo on them. And the final penguin fight here, easily the trickiest fight in the game. Penguin is very fast, and this combo is so very important to maintain because he does a ton of damage. You just lose a lot of time. Unfortunately, LRock losing the infinite there. Penguin's going into his crazy fly mode. Nice extra joy hit there. LRock was able to get the infinite back. Meanwhile, Westpoint Steve doing a very good job of keeping him in place. And just barely ahead of him with LRock. That final slam putting the penguin to the ground. And oh, what a troll. He broke free just in time, but Westpoint Steve with some quick zipline action and a boot to the face brings the penguin to the mat. A 9-second difference in finishes. What a great race. Both of these guys are so very good at this game. They made it look easy, but I assure you it is a very, very challenging game. But highly, highly recommend if you haven't seen this game before and haven't had the pleasure of trying it out, definitely go and do so at your next opportunity. Fine, fine Batman action. But GG's to LRock and to Westpoint Steve. What a great show they put on for us. So coming up next here, it looks like we've got X-Men Mutant Apocalypse. Some more action from the mighty LRock. Going to be putting on another awesome show for us. But thank you all so much for coming out to support everybody. Doing such a great job on the back end. All of the runners have been doing amazing, so super excited to be a part of this. We'll be catching y'all a little bit later here for sure. But man, I'm so glad you all got to see such a great race. really, really awesome back and forth. Always thrilling to see two runners who are so close together just make everything happen. So, round of applause goes out to those guys.
X-Men.